Have you ever wondered why some travelers breeze through TSA like nothing happened? While others, maybe even you get that slow, unsettling tap on the shoulder that says, "Sir, step aside"? Because what most people don't know is that TSA isn't just reacting to what's in your bag, they're reacting to you. Your behavior, your timing, your energy, tiny details you don't even realize you're giving off. And sometimes even invisible patterns that have been quietly tracking you through every airport you've ever visited. And once you learn the real triggers, the hidden ones, the ones that aren't on websites or signs, you'll never walk through an airport the same way again. So let's dive into these 12 silent TSA triggers that can yank you into extra screening before you even know what's happening. Because honestly, some of these are so strange, so oddly specific, that people think I'm making them up until it actually happens to them. Now imagine you're at the airport, half asleep, coffee in one hand, boarding pass in the other, rushing toward the checkpoint, and suddenly something tiny, sulfur monoxide, tiny, throws the whole system off and flags you. Here's the first thing. Scanners actually detect micro-temperature spikes on your skin, meaning if you just jogged through the terminal, or you rushed because boarding was closing, your slightly elevated body temperature can look suspicious on next-gen scanners because they can't distinguish rushing from anxiety, and anxiety from threat behavior. Crazy, right? But it gets weirder. Trigger number 2 is something hardly anyone knows: inconsistent eye movement. Yep. If you suddenly avoid eye contact with an officer after making eye contact earlier, even for a second, they're behavioral detection. Training flags at inconsistency, because normal travelers don't change their pattern unless they're hiding something. It doesn't mean you're guilty, it just means your nervous system betrayed you, and TSA watches for exactly that. And then there's the third trigger, something so strangely normal it almost feels unfair: your clothing fibers. The TSA scanners sometimes flag random fabrics because certain synthetic weaves create reflective signatures that confuse older machines. So you could literally get pulled aside because your shirt was bought from a clearance rack in a factory that used cheaper fabric finishes. No joke, happens more often than you think. Now the fourth trigger is even more bizarre: scent profiles, not perfumes, not deodorant. I'm talking about residue from certain hand lotions, cleaning sprays, even weird grocery store items like citrus wipes or antibacterial gels that leave trace compounds. Advanced ETD swabs can pick up microscopic chemical signatures from those compounds. And boom, you're pulled aside, wondering why your hands are being swabbed like you're in some spy movie. And here's something wild. Trigger number 5 is time of day tension. If you check in at a time when most flagged travelers historically check in, yes, they track that, you're more likely to be watched. They don't tell people this because, obviously, they can't. But TSA uses behavioral data algorithms that highlight travelers flying at statistically suspicious hours. So even your flight time can unconsciously work against you. And then trigger 6, digital silence. This one really shocks people. If your phone suddenly has no activity, no notifications, no normal patterns like your device being powered off longer than typical, airport data sync systems may identify your device as an anomaly. You're not being spied on, they just run. Automated behavior analytics and unusually quiet devices sometimes get flagged as potential burner phones. Completely innocent people get roped into this all the time. A trigger 7 is one that almost no traveler believes until it happens. Symmetry. Yes, symmetry. TSA scanners love asymmetrical shapes and hate perfectly symmetrical ones. If two objects in your bag are almost identical in size and shape like to power banks, to metal cases, two boxed snacks, two identical perfume bottles, they create mirrored signatures that confuse the algorithm. And confused algorithms pull you aside. Now let's talk about number 8. Airport memory. If you've ever been pulled aside at a non-US airport for any reason, Evan, random, your screening profile quietly changes. It's not a punishment. It's not a blacklist. It's just a soft marker that says this traveler once required secondary screening. And the system sometimes auto-escalates if certain patterns repeat. You don't know it. They don't tell you, but it exists. And here's trigger 9. Inconsistent packing density. If one corner of your bag is ultra-dense, like a pile of cords, chargers and stuff jammed together while the rest is airy and empty. TSA's automatic threat detection doesn't like that density contrast. Threat objects often hide in dense pockets. So even though you just packed badly, the scanner interprets it differently. Trigger 10 is stranger than fiction. Emotional residue. I know how insane that sounds. But airports have high-energy environments. And trained officers pick up microfacial expressions that show if your body is holding leftover adrenaline, like if you had a fight earlier. Rushed, stressed, panicked about being late, or something emotional happened before arriving. Their training isn't CFIET psychology. Small emotional mismatches trigger behavioral anomalies. And anomalies equal checks. Now, trigger 11 might be the most misunderstood. Silence under pressure. When an officer asks a simple question like, "Where are you flying today?" and you freeze or answer too slowly. Not because you're hiding anything, but because your brain blanked out. That hesitation gets flagged. Most people answer casually. But people who pause too long or overthink or over-explain accidentally activate TSA's behavioral risk checklist. And finally, trigger 12, the most unpredictable one of all. Energy inconsistency. I don't mean spiritual energy or vibes. I mean the contrast between your visible stress level and your physical movement. If your hands tremble slightly, but your voice is calm, or your face looks neutral, but your breathing is elevated, TSA behavioral algorithms pick up that mismatch. Humans can lie, bodies don't. And that more than objects, more than bags, more than scanners triggers. Secondary. Screening faster than anything else. So when you put all 12 triggers together, you realize TSA is not just checking your backpack or suitcase. They're reading microbehaviors, random signals, machine reactions, chemical residue, fabric textures, digital patterns, and timing coincidences you can't predict. It's not about fear. It's not about catching innocent people. It's about filtering out anomalies. But knowing these triggers gives you a weird kind of superpower, because now you understand the invisible system running behind the scenes. The one that quietly analyzes you every time you walk through those glass doors. And honestly, once you know how delicate these triggers are, how tiny the differences can be, you'll find yourself walking through TSA calmer, more aware, more in control, not scared, just informed. And that tiny bit of awareness might just save you from getting pulled aside next time you fly.